What's up, everyone? I hope you're doing fantastic today. Happy New Year and all that good stuff. This is Raphael Garcia here for episode 104 of the Let's Talk Wrestling podcast. It is a new year, 2022, and it's been a few weeks since I've done this show. So I'm here to have a conversation with myself, I guess, about some of the things going on in the world of professional wrestling, specifically AEW and WWE. Didn't get to watch Wrestle Kingdom yet, so that would be something I would normally talk about, but I haven't had a chance to watch that yet. I'll catch up on that over the weekend. But before I do that, as always, I want to take a minute to thank everyone who takes the time to listen to this show and support our content, because without you, we wouldn't be able to continue doing this work. So you can always find our content over at MMAratings.net and .com. That's the first place to check us out. You can also hit us up on YouTube at MMA Ratings, all across all podcast platforms, including Anchor, Breaker, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Overcast, and Spotify. And you can check us out on Instagram and Twitter at MMA Myself, you can hit me up at rgarcia_sports. So let's go ahead and jump right in, because today I'm going to be talking about AEW's premiere on TBS, Jade Cargill winning the TBS women's title, or whatever the heck they're calling that exactly. Big Swole, we're going to have a little bit of a conversation about what's gone down with her over the last couple of days. WWE releasing some more talent and more. So again, thank you for taking the time to check us out. Let's go ahead and talk about this. So let's start with AEW and their premiere on TBS. That was yesterday, Wednesday, if you're watching this show beyond Thursday or whatever it may be. But on Wednesday this week, AEW Dynamite premiered on TBS, and it was a very strong show. The thing about Dynamites for me, though, is that they have such high points, usually at the start of the show, that they kind of lose my attention throughout the rest. And this one was more of the same with that, where they started off with Daniel Bryan versus Adam Page in the opening bout, which sometimes they call that the main event, wherever it may be. But they had a great contest, 30-minute match for the AEW World Heavyweight title, world title, whatever they call it, that Page defended. And I think that was a sound way to go about that. There weren't any shenanigans. It was a clean finish, brutal. Both guys were cut open and bleeding a lot. And I do want to talk about the blood portion of that. But both individuals were cut open. Very stiff-looking match where Page ended up getting the victory. And I think that that's the right decision. I know that I have been pushing for Bryan Danielson to win, not just because I feel like he's been having a hell of a run since September when he made the jump to AEW. And I think that is, at some point in time, he's going to have that title, right? And we can say that with a question mark, because sometimes I don't even know if he really wants it. The dude has been tearing it up, and he made it clear that he's here to work with talent, but also, do what he wants to do, and that's pro wrestling. So I wonder if he's going to find himself in a championship position at some point in time. But this was an excellent match. If you got the opportunity to go back and watch it, please do. I saw some people talking about they wish that they flipped the two matches, with a 30-minute draw happening first and then the 1-hour match with Page getting the victory. That would have been fine, but this was a good contest. And again, it's worth going back and watching. I think that it will be in the conversation when we talk about match of the year this year, as I'm sure Bryan Danielson will have at least 6 entries into that conversation. For Daily DDT, when we did our end of the year awards, you can go check out our post about that. I'll be writing a lot about that over the next couple of weeks. So when we did our voting for match of the year, Bryan Danielson had 3 matches in AEW listed, and I believe 2 from WWE. We only had 10 nominations for each category. So the one guy was in 5 of those matches, at least 5 I could think of. So that tells you what type of year that he's had. So again, like I said, go back and watch that match, because it is going to be considered a classic even before this year is up. It'll be one of those matches that's considered a match of the year candidate. I'm going to talk about Jade Cargill last, even though her match was in the middle of the show, and that's kind of a point where I want to talk about that. But Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus, they won the tag team titles in the last match of the night. Not quite sure if I'm going to call that the main event, but they did pick up the tag team titles there. And there's some. I like some portions of AEW tag team wrestling. This one, I am not the biggest fan of Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus. I want to see the eventual turn that we all know is coming. I feel like they've kind of been hinting at Jungle Boy making a turn, specifically turning against Christian Cage at some point in the future. That's what I think. I don't think Cage will be the one to turn on him. But I'm not too into this team. I think that they're deserving of the tag team title because they've performed well so many times for AEW since their inception, and they're super over. People love their theme music. They love when they come out. Everything about them is, I see why people like them. They're just not for me. I think that's okay. That's something that is often missed in the pro wrestling commentary space, that you can be okay with something not being specifically for you. And Jungle Boy, Jurassic Express is just one of those things that's just not for me. They are a good team. I recognize their talent through and through, but they're just not for me. But again, this was a good match. This was a fun match. Unfortunately, we got to talk about that disgusting injury to Rey Fenix. He and Luchasaurus were on the apron battling it out, and there was a table set up right off the side on the floor. Luchasaurus goes for a choke slam through the table. It looks like Rey Fenix jumped as well to help accentuate the choke slam. And unfortunately, he stuck his left arm out to catch himself, and that shit broke. It made me think of Paul George when his leg snapped when he was running down the basketball court, and I think he went for the lay it up, and he landed funny. His leg just was toast. Or there was a UFC fight recently in the UFC Apex during COVID, where a fighter was getting slammed, and he went to post his arm, and his arm just fucking, like, his elbow just exploded. And that's kind of similar to what we saw with Rey Fenix here, because when he comes down, his arm just, like, all the weight of both men kind of come down on that one arm, and it almost gets stuck there for a second. He has to pull it out of position as it's already broken, and they showed it from multiple angles. And what really sucked about this, and we need to have a conversation about maybe AEW's PR team, their social media team, because they not only did they share that injury multiple times, or they replayed it multiple times during the show, they shared it multiple times on social media. And like, this guy's clearly hurt, because the second it happened, I tweeted about it, and I saw it popping up left and right. Oh my God, he's hurt. Did you see his arm, et cetera, et cetera. It was very clear that Rey Fenix's arm was not in the best of conditions. But they continue to tweet it out, continue to send out the video, and it's almost like, are you tone deaf? Do you not see that someone on your staff, one of your performers, are seriously injured, and you need to stop sharing that video? There's a reason why they cut away last minute, and they showed all the tag teams at the ramp up. A lot of people are talking about whether or not that was an audible to kind of help buy time before the end of the show. And it kind of looked like that, because some of those guys were just standing there drinking coffee, sitting in the crowd, looking up like, why you got the camera on me? But it was pretty bad. You could definitely tell that he was hurt. A lot of people have shared their condolences, sending out best wishes to Rey, which is great. But man, his arm did not look good. You can go back and watch this match, but I hope that they edit that out somewhere, or you find a way without that version, because man, his arm is absolutely destroyed there. So I'm going to turn the conversation over to Jade Cargill, because she won the women's TBS title tournament, defeating Ruby Soho in what is probably Jade's best match to date. It was more back and forth than what we saw in some of her other matches. Well, no, I take that back. I think that the Thunder Rosa match was better, but this one it was serviceable. Now, there's a lot of argument, a lot of back and forth about whether Jade Cargill is deserving to be a champion here. Now, let's put that piece of it to bed first. When you look at the women's division, we have women on that roster that can work, and that can work their asses off. Hikaru Shida, Serena Deeb, Thunder Rosa. They just brought in Mercedes Martinez. She can work. Ruby Soho can work as well. I think Jamie Hayter's good in the ring. You have women that can work, and they're slowly increasing the volume of women that work in that, and that can put on good matches from bell to bell. Then you have individuals who are personalities who have that quote unquote it factor. You have Britt, who definitely has that, and you've seen that elevate her when she wasn't as seasoned as some people may like. I mean, Big Swole, who we'll be talking about in a minute, really was the first, and then Thunder Rosa were the first to kind of help carry her and elevate her to the position that she is today. Her match work, her in-ring work isn't that great. I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I've said it plenty of times before. Her crowning moment, defeating Hikaru Shida at Double or Nothing last year, I don't think that match was great. I think it was very sloppy, and I don't think a lot of people really kind of said that. In fact, I'm kind of the feeling that they need to get that belt off of Britt, but that's another conversation for another episode. I'm not saying that we need to say that since one individual was green when they were elevated, then we shouldn't be complaining about Jade. I don't think anyone should be complaining about Jade being quote unquote green, because she has so many other facets of being a superstar performer that so many people, male and female in AEW, do not have. Her presence is there. Her look is there. She has crossover appeal that can get people who are not interested or not as versed or caught up in pro wrestling as they once were. She can catch their attention. I have friends now to this day who don't know much about wrestling. They don't watch it anymore. They may have seen it in passing. They know who Jade Cargill is. They know who Bianca Belair is as well. My best friend in North Carolina, he and I used to talk about wrestling all the time in high school. All the time. He's fallen off with watching it. But through my sharing of content of specifically Bianca and Sasha, he watches them anytime they're on the screen, and he's getting that way about Jade as well. He doesn't know who the fuck Kenny Omega is. He don't know who Adam Page is, but he know who Jade is, and that's a level of crossover appeal that no one else on the roster for them really fully has right now, and that needs to be cultivated as well. The in-ring work will catch up because she's shown that she's dedicated to learning that piece, and it's taking its time because there were some sloppy points in that match when they were looking to do the Avalanche Jaded. Man, I'm so glad she went back down to the second rope, because when she was going up to the first, you could tell that was shaky and everybody was like, oh my God. But she went back down to the second and just did it from there. It still didn't look great, but it got the point across, got her the victory. And I think that we need to kind of let her grow in her space. There's so many people that were put into positions that they had to kind of sink or swim. You see that going on with NXT right now. I mean, Cora Jade is young as hell. She was 19 when she signed. I think she's like 20 now, the youngest person on the entire roster. She was just in a title match on Tuesday. Braun Breaker just started wrestling in April. I think in February of April of last year, if that. And he is a champion as well, around the same time that Jade started. So no one's calling him green, or no one's saying anything nasty and negative about him. So let's give these performers an opportunity to kind of grow into the role. There really is a sink or swim aspect that I think can be embraced when talking about Jade. And I think right now she's swimming, because there may be some quote unquote challenges in other areas, but the intangibles she brings to the ring really matters in what AEW needs on their roster. They need more superstar personalities, more superstars that can kind of get across with more fans than just those who watch BTE or who knew who the Bullet Club were a couple of years ago. She can do that, and I think that she's in a proper position to be the next or the first really big crossover star for AEW. So and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with that TBS title. She's going to need some longer matches, like a more sustained type of match, as she kind of keeps that belt, because AEW does do a good job of kind of keeping their titles on people for an extended period of time. Sitting here thinking about it, Sammy's run with the TNT title, and maybe Luchasaurus's run with, or not excuse me, the Lucha Bros run, but the tag team titles may be the shortest ones that we've seen so far. So let's see what they do with Jade and the TBS title. Who's the next challenger and kind of how they build that up. I think that looking at how that division is kind of rolling out, maybe they can kind of build up Layla Hirsch into that situation. Maybe have her be like a challenger. They could have someone like a Red Velvet be a challenger there for her. They could have someone be, trying to think of another name. That would be a decent face. Tay Conti, who can take that L. They can help, especially since they just did the blow off with Penelope and Bunny as well too. So I think Tay Conti would be a good first challenger for Jade. People are going to be pushing for Tay Conti to win, but I think Jade should keep that title and kind of have that there. So that's just my thoughts on that. I want to give some thoughts next about the Big Swole situation because that has been a mess, and we couldn't even get started with the new year without wrestling Twitter going ham on some foolishness. So let's have a conversation about that. So as you are aware, because if you're watching this, clearly you follow professional wrestling from a social media space. Big Swole departed from AEW in November, and it's important to note when she departed, it was reported as a mutual split. Both parties decided to go their opposite ways. So December comes around, and New Year's Eve, I think, I believe it was New Year's Eve, comes around, and she does her audio cast called The Call In. I believe that's what it's called. But it's like an audio cast like this, but just audio. And she talks about diversity and inclusion in the women's division in AEW. And she, as much glowing praise that she offers up to the promotion, that she offers to Tony Khan in name, she praised that man left and right. She also talked about some of the challenges she had saw with representation and with the women's division not getting the time and care that she was under the impression that it needed. All substantial critiques that people have been making about AEW since they got on Dynamite. I mean, people have been talking about the fact that there's usually only one match. Why is there only one match? Why is there only one segment? Why are the same women featured? I've written about why Hikaru Shida held the title for a year, loses it, and it's 5-6 more months before she's back on Dynamite. So people have been raising these alarms about the women's division for a minute. They've been raising alarms about diversity and inclusion as well. I wrote about this. AEW promised to be a diverse promotion that elevated people of different gender, different sexual orientations, different backgrounds. But that's not the case. They have a very diverse roster. Let's listen to what's being said. They have a very diverse roster where they have multiple people across a wide range of backgrounds. But are those individuals used and featured at the same rate? No, absolutely not. And that's something that is really glowing. And we can't have this conversation. And I know a lot of people want to just talk about the black male presence in the black male presence in the singles division because that's a talking piece of that. But you can't leave women out of this conversation, especially you can't leave black women out of this conversation. So Big Swole had her remarks, and Tony Khan, not even a day later or so, he grabs the link from Fightful when he tweets it out that. Basically tweeting out his frustration with what Swole said and went on to say that she was cut because she wasn't a good wrestler. And then goes and promotes the women's match that night with Tay Conti, Anna Jay, Penelope, and the Bunny. So you have 3 white women and I'm going to call her white Latina because we do say Afro, like I'm an Afro Latino. So she's a white Latina. She's Brazilian. So that's a whole other conversation for another day. There's so many things wrong with this. I'm just going to put it like this. If Tony Khan was in any other promotion, he was in that, or not promotion, if any other position of leadership in any other organization, not one such as this, not one that's like male empowered, where men can basically do whatever the hell they want and get away with it. That's the same across any other industry for the most part. But when you make an HR violation like that in public, you're usually fired for that type of shit. He still hasn't apologized, and as of today, I believe that the tweet is still up. So from there, it kind of snowballs. Fans jump on her, calling her racist, sending her death threats, etc., etc. There's two clear things that I want to talk about here. First and foremost, there's no different from what Swole did in airing her grievances in the most respectful of ways. There's no difference from that to Jon Moxley, Miro, anyone else going on Talk is Jericho and airing their grievances about WWE. If you can't see the difference between the two of those, you do not have a space in this conversation at all. Most people don't have a space in this conversation to begin with. But if you can't see that Swole airing her grievances in the most respectful manner is the same thing, if not better, than so many different WWE superstars or former superstars that have gone on Talk is Jericho to talk negatively about WWE. If you think one's okay, or if you think that one's okay and the other isn't, then you're not really kind of versed for this talk. You're being very biased in the conversation. So that's one piece of it. The second piece, and I wrote about this for Daily DDT this week, is the fact that so many Black men are speaking up. I don't want to say so many, because I've seen like 2 or 3. Black men are speaking up about their experience in AEW. And I wrote about this. You can catch my piece over our Daily DDT. It came out yesterday. It's not that those individuals don't have a space in the conversation, because they have their own experiences, they have their own opinions. They are entitled to that as human beings. Everyone can have that. But you have to recognize that the timing of your sharing, read the room. Their commentary on their experiences will be used to denigrate and try to silence Big Swole. Because then once someone airs their comment, Big Powerhouse Hobbs, for example, put out his justification, but his perception of diversity and inclusion in AEW. And what happens is people will take that and say, see, Big Swole is out of line, or she's uncalled for, because this is what Powerhouse Hobbs, this is his experience, and his experience trumps hers. I don't want to say anything bad about Shawn Dean, but Shawn Dean kind of did the same thing, but in a different fashion, where he was talking about his experience with in his position, which is a very important position as like a talent scout for AEW. But still, that doesn't trump what Swole is talking about. That doesn't trump her experience, and this is something that a lot of Black women experience across the workspace, regardless of industry, where when they speak up, their voices are often beat back down to the point where they end up leaving the company, just like Swole has done. And this doesn't mean to say that she's without reproach. We don't know what may have happened backstage. We don't know what she may have said, et cetera, et cetera. But she has a space to talk about her experience. And it's important that she's given that space to talk about her experience without others trying to talk over her, or presenting a perception that will be used against her, or used as ammunition against her in the future. You have to read the room and recognize that that's what's happening. And that's one of the that's a big reason why Black women say Black men don't protect them. This is a primary example of it, because it's a Black woman speaking up about her perception and her experience, and Black men are the first ones who are being elevated to speak against what she's saying. So you have to be cognizant of that. And if this was January last year and Powerhouse was sharing his feelings, it would be a totally different conversation. But it's not. It's January this year, after she's been put under fire for what she said about AEW, wrongly put under fire. Because again, this is something that people have been saying about that promotion for the better part of a year, 2 years. So let's just, go check out my piece at Daily DDT, so you can kind of read more about that. But this is something that is not going to go away. It's something that we have to recognize and kind of keep a close eye on. So from there, I'm going to flip over to WWE for the last maybe like 10 minutes of the show, 10 to 12 minutes, and talk about some of the things going on there. And this is like more of the same, right? It is a couple of days into the new year, and they are already doing releases. Now, this is clearly the end of an era, end of the Triple H era for NXT, because coming off of New Year's Evil, which was a pretty decent show across the board, multiple releases occurred yesterday and today. Samoa Joe was cut today. Tim Thatcher, Danny Burch, and Hachiman were cut yesterday. Now, multiple backstage personnel were cut as well, including Road Dogg, Ace Steel, and some others. What's important to note here is the way that these individuals were labeled when they were cut. WWE basically said no on-air talent is being released. Now you think about that. Joe was just NXT champion a few months ago. Hachiman was an on-air member of Diamond Mine. He didn't wrestle, but he was an on-air member of that show. Danny Burch was just one and a half of the tag team champions 6 months ago, if that. Who was the fourth? Tim Thatcher had his last match in August. All of them have been relegated to a backstage role. It's clear that they were not in the plans for NXT 2.0. Clear as day. Samoa Joe was just released last year, I think in April. He gets brought back by Triple H. Triple H is out of power, and Samoa Joe is released again. So that's really kind of what's happened there. And you have to look at this as yeah, this is the kind of this is the death knell for NXT as we know it. And that made me think of something, because looking at NXT 2.0, I'm not sure if I enjoy it or not. I laugh at it because I laugh at some of the foolishness that we see every time that the show's on. So I laugh at it, but I'm not sure if I'm quite laughing with it or if I'm enjoying it. There are things I like let me say something nice about the program. I like Imperium as a tag team champions because those dudes fucking work their asses off. But how long are they going to keep those belts? You have Walter back on Tuesday. Is he going to get a legit run? Is Walter going to get moved up to the main roster? So there's that. What else might I like? I like Kushida. Jacket time is a horribly stereotypical gimmick, but one more thing. Let me think of one more thing that I like about NXT 2.0. Carmelo Hayes. That dude, people haven't compared him to Ascent and said he's this generation's version of Shawn Michaels. I am, I'm not sure how I feel about that. But if anybody can make that hurt, or if anyone can make that help or make that fit, I think it's going to be him. That dude can work his ass off. Again, if you want a match to watch the week from WWE, go back and watch his match with Roderick Strong this week. The dude, they tore the house down like everyone knew that they would when he unified the North American title and the Cruiserweight Championship. But that promotion or that brand, I'm not sure if it's going to be around for too much longer, to be honest with you. I don't even know. They may pick and choose some of the individuals that they keep, but I don't see anyone out other than Raquel Gonzalez, Cameron Grimes, who's barely on TV anymore, Toxic Attraction, Braun Breaker. Those are really the only ones I could see be on TV long term. They are propping up Grayson Waller, but that dude's like a joke to me. Anyone else outside of that group can be cut tomorrow, and I would not be surprised. Anyone else, Zion Quinn, he could be gone tomorrow. I wouldn't bat an eye. Legado del Fantasma, as awesome as they've been, as much as I've hyped them up, they could be cut tomorrow, and I would not be surprised. Boa, I'm surprised he's still around. I don't see that whole brand feels like a caricature of pro wrestling. At least what I like when it comes to pro wrestling, because I know there are some individuals who like the big personalities first and foremost over the pro wrestling. I'm actually going to put that poll on Daily DDT this week, and I want to see how that's going to play out. But Triple H's version of NXT is officially dead and gone. And NXT 2.0 is here to stay, even at a backstage standpoint. The other note I wanted to talk about is us finally, as Rock would say, getting Bobby Lashley versus Brock Lesnar. This match is happening at Royal Rumble. Now, the way it had to come about is not the best, obviously. Roman Reigns contracted COVID, was pulled out of day one. Brock Lesnar was inserted into the Fatal 4-Way, making it a Fatal 5-Way. He pins Big E, and it's clear as day that was going to happen. What makes it tough? I'm going to start with Big E first. Anyone who is of the mind thinking that he's immediately going to be inserted back into the title picture, you are more optimistic than I, because we've seen time and time again that WWE does not do that. They didn't do it with Kofi Kingston. After how much of that momentum he had behind Kofi Mania, they didn't do it then. I could very well see them not doing it now. I hope they do. If I was the one to book it, I would have Roman Reigns cost Lesnar the title at Royal Rumble, so then you can go do Reigns versus Lesnar again, and then you have Bobby Lashley and Big E be on the other night as a WWE Championship match. And I would have one of those nights that night could be headlined by the women, because they're not going to put them over Roman Reigns. But Lashley and Lesnar is going down at the Rumble. I think it's going to be fun, man. Like this is it's been a little while since I've been this excited about a WWE match in advance. I'm trying to sit here and think about one. Walter versus Dragunov. I was excited about that too. That's actually why I voted about that. I voted that to be my match of the year. I'm actually writing about that for tomorrow too. But that was the last time I was like hyped for a match going into it. Lashley versus Leslie is going to thump. You have two big horses that are just going to go at it. And there's so much you could talk about in this match that's important, that's historical relevance to this match. Lesnar is a former UFC champion. Bobby Lashley fought in the two main promotions that were rival or competitors to UFC, Strikeforce and then the Bellator. He's actually still contracted to Bellator's contract is frozen. Lesnar is a former NCAA champion. Lashley is an NAIA champion, which is like I don't want to say competitor, but the secondary promotion for college athletes to compete in. It's the Division II of college wrestling, for lack of a better term. Like you have Division I college football, Division II. NAIA is like the Division II of college wrestling. Those guys are still legit, but they just couldn't go to like some of the bigger programs because there's so few of them. Huge programs for wrestling in college, so they also have the NAIA. I was going to try to go to an NAIA school back in the day. So everything's there to tell a fantastic story. Then you have Paul Heyman and MVP. Like those two guys are going to kill it on the mic to hype this up. Paul Heyman hyped the hell out of Big E and Lashley on Raw on Monday, so you know it's coming. Everything there is a look forward to for this match. I'm really excited about that, and I'm excited that we're finally getting it. It's just unfortunate that the way that we had to get it, and I hope you hope Roman recovers. B, I'm looking forward to seeing Big E get back into the title picture, and I want Lashley to get back to the championship. So everyone, I want to bring this episode to a close. This is episode 104 of the Let's Talk Wrestling podcast. I am always covering pro wrestling over on Daily DDT. You can catch my MMA content. We have the podcast on Wednesday. My written content's over at Fanside MMA. I'm also going to finally get back to writing for MMA ratings as well. So you can always find my content there. We're doing a lot of work this year to build the platform up. So please, please, please like, share, and subscribe. Anything that you see us put out there. As always, you can catch me at rgarcia_sports. I thank you all for your support. Happy New Year. Wear your mask, get vaccinated, get boosted. Black Lives Matter. And also mind your business, folks. Have a good night, everyone.